to the Telivy Pitch IT webinar series. Very excited to introduce our guest here today. Bobby, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Jeremy, thanks for having me. Super excited to be here. It's fun going through the program with Telivy. I'm the head of growth at Thread, I'll tell you a little bit more about Thread, but excited to be here.
Very excited. Yeah, and I love to learn more about growth in particular as well. Quick intro for me. Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremy, head of partnerships at Telivy. And we're an automated cybersecurity risk assessments platform for over 100 MSPs. MSPs like Halt Data Solutions, Strata Networks, and Level 5 Management use Telivy to run risk assessments to win new clients, capture new prospects with risk assessments widget on their homepage, help clients meet compliance, and they love Telivy because MSPs reduce risk assessments that take 7 to 8 days manually to under 5 hours automated with Telivy. All right, so let's dive right in, Bobby, into Thread. Could you tell us more about Thread and who you work with?
Yeah, Jeremy, love the pitch of Televy. Concise. That's awesome. We help MSPs create magical experiences for their customers and for their technicians. We come from a big MSP. Like I think a lot of good vendors in the space have experienced the problems ourselves, but really what we think about is for the end user of an MSP, today their interaction is a bit antiquated. If I'm going to get help with support from an MSP, I'm typically going to have to pick up the phone or send an email to an email address that's probably hard to find, or maybe go to a customer portal and then go through like 10 different Q&As that are probably none of them are really going to solve my problem.
Mm.
And if we're honest, I'm probably just not going to do any of that because it's all too frustrating. And if I'm like the average end user, I'm just going to yell at my team, whoever's in charge of IT stuff, and be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Get me a new keyboard.
Mm.
My internet's not working. Like, what the heck? And then on the flip side, the MSP is stifled by a lot of the technology in the space today. So they're offering the best that they can offer while still having a multi-tenant system, while having security and RMM and a lot of these things that an MSP quote unquote has to have. And so, yeah, a lot of the way we think about it is we just want to create these beautiful, magical, seamless experiences that integrate with these antiquated systems that
Mm.
MSPs use.
And I feel like this is a problem that every business owner has, right? If there's a solution, service, or even product that you offer, there's going to be basically a customer success or a support, or there's a user experience, and
Yep.
you want to make sure that your customers have a great experience. So Bobby, how does Thread do that?
Yeah, and to your point, it happens with everything, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have a service experience, but it can't be insanely expensive, right? I can't
Right.
go hire like 10 PhDs to run my service desk and respond to
Right.
people instantly, right? Like I'd have to charge $1 million a month for whatever I'm selling. And so there's a trade-off, right? And yeah, so the way that we do it is we hate tickets. We think tickets are a terrible way to treat people. And this industry is largely based around tickets, again, because of these antiquated systems that MSPs have to use. And
Mm-hmm.
so we still get everything on the ticket, but we're putting the ticket back in its box of a place that holds information. It's for time entries, it's for billing, super important things, but it's not for communication. So by getting the ticket out of the primary communication channels, really what we're doing is giving the end user a white labeled app. It's
Mm.
primarily in Microsoft Teams, sometimes in Slack. It can be on their website. It can be in our own app, but most of the time it's in Teams, right? Because that's what the average customer is using. So the MSP can be in their Teams environment now, but that end user isn't just DMing people directly, right? They're not like, "Hey, Bill, fix this for me." And Bill's like, "I've got tickets. I have a
Yeah.
message in Teams from this customer. How the heck did they message me?" And now they have to make a choice of, am I going to sacrifice process for customer experience
Right.
or not? And most of the time, you do make that choice to sacrifice process.
Mm-hmm.
And in the long run, you end up sacrificing customer experience too,
Yep.
because it falls out of the process. You drop the ball, you don't help somebody the way that you meant to. And
How
so
does
helping that MSP follow the process is a big
how
deal.
does Thread solve that particular problem when
Yeah,
everything's urgent, right?
For sure. So, MSPs are really good at triage. They have good dispatch processes. The PSA is good at helping people with that. And so the big thing for us is when that end user has that seamless experience, it still opens a ticket and goes into the MSP's dispatch and triage process. So
Hmm.
it's masking that from the end user. They don't necessarily realize that it's still plugging into this system on the back end. We are giving a pretty big facelift to the MSP as well on top of the PSA. But at the end of the day, everything's going back in the PSA. We're not here to like fundamentally change the way dispatch works, but we want that dispatch to be seamless.
Yeah, you're putting a very needed process on top of something without a process is very chaotic. Things fall through the cracks all the time, whether it's with support. And an MSP owner has a lot of things on their plate. It's not just the service, it's not just support, it's business development, it's sales marketing,
Yeah,
it's team management, right? It's finance. I think any business owner would welcome putting a process in their support. So this wasn't planned or scripted, but hearing you explain it, I really want to see what that looks like, and seeing is believing. I'll buy you some
sure.
time with a couple
No,
questions
I'm good.
first.
I'm good. I can share my screen.
Yeah, would love to at some point, whenever it feels natural, to So how does it work? What does it look like? What's
Yeah.
the experience as a MSP owner? So I'll buy you some time with this question here. I would love to understand a little bit more about the MSPs who use Thread.
Mhm.
What was their customer journey like? What was the before and after
Yeah,
situation? I feel like a lot of our MSP owners would relate to that.
for sure. Yeah, most of the time, people that see Thread and are like, "Oh my God, I have to have that today," they're already messaging with their customers and teams. And so they've either gone into their customers' environments and they have users there, or they brought them into their teams, or they're just the connected, like federated instances. And so they're messaging with their customers and teams that normally isn't opening a ticket. They're normally not copy and pasting it into the PSA. If they are, then that's not a fun process, right? It's kind of happenstance. Sometimes it happens. You're almost certainly not tracking billing and time entries. And so, you've probably spent a ton of money, worked with consultants, all this stuff, building your dispatch process and your process in the PSA. And then your customers have just forced you to throw that out the window to support them in teams. And it's normally
Yeah.
not all customers, but it's like two really important ones. And then you see like, oh, this is where things are going. This is how people want to interact.
Hmm.
And with that, one of the coolest things we see is just the time to response dropping drastically, whether it's when the customer wants to talk to you or when you want to talk to them. Like, think about with Telivy, say you're doing a risk assessment and you want to get that in front of your customer,
Hmm.
sending them an email and saying like, "Hey, let's schedule a QBR and talk about this risk assessment."
Yep.
Probably not going to get the best response, right? Not because the risk assessment isn't awesome, but just because it's in their email.
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus, if I message them in Teams and I'm like, "Hey, I found a vulnerability. Like, can we go over it real quick? Let me show you this risk assessment."
Mm.
The owner of that MSP or whoever your site contact is probably going to respond in a few minutes, right?
Yep.
And then you're talking with them same day, you got the meeting on the calendar, and they're not in your team's instance, they're not in yours. It's still through a ticket. That interaction is logged.
Absolutely. And we work with a lot of MSPs who do QBRs with their clients. Compliance requirements, right? It's that you got to have an annual check-in. You got to pass the audit every year. Security posture
Hmm.
QBRs, right? So, well, we hired the MSP. Are we seeing progress, right? Nothing's happening. Well, that's actually a good thing because now here's the data. So, yeah, and getting to speak directly with the customer that way in that forum, have that communication channel so things don't fall through the cracks. Also, when the customer reaches out to you with something they feel is urgent,
Yeah,
that you're able to easily triage, you have a process, you're able to easily respond back to them, provide expectations on when you can provide that support. Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. So yeah, is this something that we could see?
for sure. Yeah, I do want to plug just for later. I know you have a big AI background. We do a bunch of stuff with AI, and the dispatch stuff
Interesting.
is interesting. We automatically prioritize tickets and categorize tickets with our AI when they come in. So that can definitely help. Like, oh, this is urgent. Our AI recognized it. It pushed it into the MSP's Teams or Slack channel, and now you're swarming it the way that you probably should with a P1 instance. So just
Wow.
plug in that. We'll get back to it later, but
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
love to dive into that. But yeah, as far as like our actual product goes, I'm going to start with what it looks like in Teams for the end user.
Hmm.
So, the MSP in this situation is Acme. So you can see there's an Acme app here in the end user's Teams environment. So I wake up one morning, using Teams, I'm chatting with my coworkers. All of a
Could you
sudden,
zoom in? Is that possible?
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Let me actually just reshare my screen so it's just that window.
Hmm.
All right, so I'm in Teams, right? I have a bunch of coworkers. I'm lonely. I only have one, but you would have all your coworkers here. And now you have your MSP pinned right up here, and anything that's happening on a ticket is getting sent to me as a DM. So I'm getting those
Mm.
push notifications. I'm seeing it right where other things are. I can see, we do still show the ticket number as much as we hate tickets. It's helpful to be able to reference.
Yeah.
Um, but on top of this bot, we also have the app, and this is where it gets a bit more robust. You have a few resources you can provide. You can put a link to, Telivy stuff that you want them to have right in front of them. But then here they're seeing any open tickets they have, so they
Hmm.
can click, see who they're talking to, see the status of the ticket,
Oh, can we
and
can
then
we can
open
we
in your
stay there a
request.
little longer? An example sort of use case here. So the
Yeah.
client said, "I need help onboarding a new user in 365," and then what happens?
Yeah. So I'll just do a new one real quick. I'll send a
Sure.
message and say, I've got a new user to onboard. So I send that chat. Again, I'm not really thinking about a ticket or not a ticket, but when I send that, the first thing that happens is the ticket's opened,
Oh
and then it shows me
wow,
the status. Because that's
that's
the
really
big thing
nice.
with chat, you don't want someone to expect an instant response. Like that's what we find MSPs are most worried about with implementing something like chat. We find, especially with digital natives, people that are, used to this type of experience,
Yeah.
they don't expect instant if you tell them it's not instant. Like if they
Mm-hmm.
see request is received and you can control the messaging, you could put a
Yeah.
timer here. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways to help
We'll
them
get back to
understand that.
you in 4 hours or within an hour.
Exactly. Yeah, no, we definitely do some things to help the MSP respond quickly. We find the first touch of saying like, "Hey, we see it. I'm assigning this to me. I'll be with you in 4 hours." Like
Mm-hmm.
that type of communication is typically really helpful over chat,
Oh
but
yeah.
there's a lot of ways to approach it.
What happens next?
Yeah. So this ticket's opened. It's in, say we're using ConnectWise. It's in Manage. It's also pushed into the MSP's Slack or Teams. And then
Oh,
we
that's
have our
really
own
nice.
backend tool. Yeah, because Manage or any PSA isn't real time, right? So you can't handle chat very well in a PSA. So we create our own real time tool. We put it in the PSA and Manage. It's called Pods, and Autotask is called Insights. Basically, our real time tool in there. We also have our own tool as a whole, and everything that's happening here. Sorry, I need to share my screen differently.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's happening in this tool is logging on the ticket in the PSA. So this is what we call inbox. It's like a new interface for the PSA.
Could
You
you
can
could you
see
zoom in a little bit and also help us break down, yeah, each part?
absolutely. So the left side here's my navigation. My inbox is any ticket that's opened and assigned to me as a technician.
Oh
So
wow.
here's different tickets. Channels are kind of like views and manage or queues and auto task, but they're a lot more real time. So you can see I have one for all my triage tickets, whether they're chat based or
Oh, it's
not.
so nice. You have a not triage folder. Yeah.
Yeah, I have like P1, P2 instances, and then I can click on a ticket. I can
Are these
assign it.
customizable? These folders?
Absolutely. Yeah, you control those through our workflows. So like a really simple workflow would be like if the status of a ticket is new, then I want it to go to
Wow,
a triage channel.
that's fantastic. It
And these
kind of works
workflows are
the
real
same
time
as
too.
like Microsoft Outlook, like like an email client. You have
Yeah.
filters, right? You have rules, you have folders, you have a list of things. And you click into it and you see the message. Wow,
Yeah,
that's
and
amazing.
PSAs do a decent job at this, but they're not real time. And that
Hmm.
just creates so many challenges. So
Hmm.
it's an events-based architecture. So the millisecond something happens, it's firing and updating and makes a big difference.
Where does AI come in? Is there an example?
Yeah, for sure. So this ticket came in. I'm going to accept it. So that'll make me the owner. It'll put it in my inbox. You could also triage it how you normally would.
Uh huh.
So when I accepted this ticket, the end user got a message telling them that I'm assigned. Their status moved along automatically.
Nice.
You know, we find technicians typically aren't the best at communicating to the end user. They're excited to start solving problems, so we want to automate a little bit of that.
That's
But yes,
perfect.
so the first AI thing that came into play, we call it Service Copilot. We work closely with Microsoft, but you know, as far as their lawyers are concerned, it's Service Copilot. And so you'll see when this ticket comes in, it automatically prioritizes it. So it looked at it, it said scheduled maintenance is required, pretty simple issue. And then we told it earlier what our SLAs around this are. And you'll do that on the back end of our tool. It's pretty simple. Out of the box,
Wow.
it works really well. And then you can just tell it in natural language what you consider different priorities of tickets. So I can say,
Wow.
for example, new CEO starts today. So we have an emulator over here. It
Oh,
says
that's
that's
amazing. You guys thought of everything. Wow.
that's pretty fun. It's you know, we're using OpenAI, so we work really closely with Microsoft. They actually did a case study on us on how we're using OpenAI. So
Nice.
there's a lot of fun stuff. Priority is the first thing. Categorization is the next piece.
Actually,
This isn't
if we could jump right back to, I want to read the message and understand why it gave it a priority four.
sure, absolutely. So I said I've got a new user to onboard. Pretty simple, not a lot of context there. Um, if you go into the back end of it, it'll tell you like it's only affecting one user. They're not necessarily starting today. You know, if I send a message
Wow.
and say like I have a priority user starting and they have to be onboarded now, then it'll see that message, process it a little differently, set it to P2.
Wow. I love your product.
Thanks, Jeremy. It's a
Wow.
lot of fun. And you could change this to say, like, if you changed it over here, then that would make it P1. So, like, if I put
Hmm.
any new user starting today is P1, and then I save the priority, and then let's just try sending that same message. No promises. It is AI, right? It's not hard
Hmm.
and fast rules.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're very fearless. Doing like
Yeah,
improvisational demos. Wow, there you
there you
go.
go. P1
Priority one.
emergency
There you
response.
go.
So it's pretty powerful. And then you can see like these are the SLAs that we have that it's pulling those into each priority.
That's incredible. Um, wow. Yeah, and thank you for showing us that. Did we already go over the before and after for your customers basically, for MSPs? Basically, you know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah. That was it.
Yeah, you know, before you're working the stuff in the PSA, you click and wait and click and wait and click and wait.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe you're chatting through the RMM, but this would all be handled through a phone call or through email. You know, phone calls are expensive. They're one to one. You can't
Yep.
multitask while you're doing it. It feels good because as the end user, I'm
Mm-hmm.
scared. I need someone helping me. We find people feel supported very similarly through chat.
Oh
But
yeah,
as a
for sure.
technician, I can handle three tickets now. And so we've literally broken our customers' reporting by showing like 180% utilization for their techs because they have time entries overlapping, working tickets
Do
over each other.
do you have more of these numbers? I'd love to learn more. So, in terms of the benefits, the after, right? So after using Thread, the benefits that I'm seeing, is there a quantifiable number of hours perhaps I save or dollars that I save, right?
Yeah.
Because you're optimizing a process. Support technicians and engineers are able to be way more productive in their day to day. And I imagine, right, if you're an MSP and you're trying to close a sale, right? You haven't closed it yet. You're working with them on some initial work. There's some issues, or it's a well-paying customer and you want to upsell them, right? This is tied. Your support service is tied to your ability to sell,
Totally.
and that revenue, right? That you gain with this process.
Yeah, and to keep customers. Like
Yep.
if we're honest, like most MSPs lose customers because of communication,
Hmm.
right? Maybe there was ransomware or something, but most of the time it's because they were just not happy with how
Hmm.
communication was.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's a huge piece. But yeah, as far as specific numbers, We see over a 30% decrease in time to resolution
Wow,
for chat-based
30.
tickets.
That's huge.
Yeah,
Wow.
and most that's just time to response. If you and I text versus send emails, it's going to be a lot faster, right?
Right. Mhm.
Um, and then, not to mention clicking and loading in the PSA, but that's on individual tickets. When you're talking about multitasking and the team being more efficient, it sounds crazy, but we see over a 70% increase in efficiency for the
Yep.
service desk overall
That makes a
when they're
lot of
using
sense.
a real-time tool. I didn't even mention you can do slash commands and you can at mention people in our tool and it's all logging on the ticket. And then kind of the big kicker at the end is we also use AI to write the time entries. So we've gone through, I just clicked on a different ticket that has a little more communication on it. So you'll see TimePad here has been tracking the time since, and I'll zoom in a little, since we first started talking. And if I just click write entry, it's going to read everything on the ticket and write a time entry.
So amazing.
This is a really simple ticket, but it would read everything whether it was chat based or not. We find that this piece alone typically saves techs about an hour per day. If you think about 5 minutes per time entry, 10, 15 tickets a
Yeah.
day, it adds up pretty quick.
Communication status, tracking, knowing where people are, right? Making sure things don't fall through the cracks, basically managing them. The like project management. Is there anything you haven't automated? I feel like you've. By the way, this is another question to sort of segue into the next part. How did this happen? This
Yeah.
product is so niche and well thought out, and I can see from the product you understand the pain points of support techs so well. Every little piece you've yeah, well, we have a box here where you could test out the AI, or here you have a write the notes, and here you can prioritize, and here's folders. How did you guys get there?
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. We appreciate it. Our partners would tell you we have a long ways to go, right? There's a lot of things that the
I
PSA
love to
does
learn more
that
about
we
that too.
don't
Yeah,
do. And,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like, for example, we don't pull the agreements from the PSA into Inbox yet. That's something we're actively working on. You would want to see the agreement that a ticket's tied to. Like, there's a lot of small things like that that exist in the PSA that
What
are
what do
on
you mean,
our
like a legal agreement, like the contract between the two
the,
businesses?
the billing agreement.
Billing
So
agreement.
a ticket comes in, it's typically tied to a specific contract, whether it's like my MSP contract or we have a specific project or it's billed hourly. And I want to see this ticket has this agreement on it and flip that
Why
stuff
is that
around.
important?
Yeah, for an MSP, typically it impacts how they work the ticket, how they prioritize it, who works it,
That makes sense.
how they're billing. It's a small thing. It's a feature we can implement pretty easily, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just an example of something that like we're not quite there yet, and our partners would tell you that. So, but to your point, I think we do understand a lot of the pains, partly due to awesome MSP partners helping us, WBM, 5-star RFA. There's a lot of great MSPs helping us. We also come from an MSP
Yeah.
ourselves. Our founders, Matt and Mark, were
Wow.
chief data officer and chief of staff at a very large MSP. And this started as a side project. They introduced Slack to their MSP, and then all of a sudden, all this communication was happening that wasn't getting on the ticket. So
Mm.
that was the original product.
Wow.
From there, it turned more customer facing. The AI, we started about a year ago. So
Nice.
a bit early as far as ChatGPT goes. I know you've been in the game a lot longer, but it was really like a weekend like side hustle for us where we just said like, what can we do with this? Let's try time entries. And all of a sudden TimePad was built for us, or we built TimePad. And you know, we have a long ways to go on that side. We envision fully automating the dispatch experience, having what we call
Wow.
service GPT in platform where it's reading tickets and documentation, suggesting responses.
That would
That
be
may
amazing.
that may or may not be something we're releasing in beta in a month at IT
Oh,
Nation.
that's
We'll
so
we'll
exciting.
see.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean that's kind of the short of it. Like it's problems we've experienced ourselves. I think the lowest hanging fruit is just that chat in Teams. Like most MSPs are experiencing that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you can't just solve that with a plugin. It's not like, oh, let me throw this quick chat thing in and then,
Right.
you know, most MSPs have experienced a chat solution that doesn't integrate with the PSA or
Hmm.
doesn't go into their dispatch
You showed us
process.
how nuanced, right, and detailed and specific every solution in your platform is. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it seems like
Yeah.
a simple problem, and we want it to feel simple, but it's actually pretty complex in how you get into the PSA
I
side of
think
it.
anybody who's worked support knows that it's not simple. It's
Yeah.
very nuanced, very complex. There's a bunch of different factors, things you're juggling around customer satisfaction, people's feelings, priority, triage, your own business development goals. Like, there's a ton of stuff. Um, I'd love to learn. So you mentioned this is like a side hustle, and just a real quick comment. I think that's where the best products come from, is when you're building a product to automate or to solve a problem you're having today, and then suddenly it's like, huh, there's other people like me who need this help,
Yeah.
so let's make it for them too. But I wanted to learn. So you mentioned it's a side hustle. How did you join Thread? How did that happen?
Yeah, so before I was with Thread, I was with a vendor in the MSP space called LionGuard, based in Houston. Really awesome company. Joe and Vin are the founders, and I've known them for 6, 7, 8 years. I was working at a startup accelerator, and so I have more of like an early stage startup background. I was working at the accelerator. They were there just getting started, working with a few MSPs, and they, helped me really learn some pains around the MSP. I spent a lot of time with them, helping them get connected with, their CFO and some investors. And Joe and Vin, I don't want to take any credit for like all the hard work they've done, but I got to join LionGuard really early. I was, first 10 employees, and we had just started to really ramp up. And I got to be there for about 4 years. And see some awesome growth, some really great product development, work with a ton of MSPs, go to a ton of conferences. And so I love the MSP space, like getting to wake up every day and know that I'm supporting people that are protecting and empowering small
Yeah,
business across the world. Like there's not a lot of jobs where you can legitimately tell yourself that you're like helping protect and, empower the world.
yeah.
And I think that's super true here. Um, and MSPs are just awesome. Like it's a small industry relatively. You can go to the bar at a conference and hang out with a ton of founders of software companies and small business and get really real about stuff. And because I think and you guys experience this a ton, like getting feedback from your partners, people are so willing to help you
Yep.
figure out
It's a
how to
great
solve their
community.
problems. Um, so all that to say, um, after about 4 years at LionGuard, I was ready to join a more early stage company again, and got introduced to Matt and Mark. And at first, frankly, I was like, chat is not that interesting. Like, I don't want my next thing to be chat. But then diving into it more was like, while chat is a big part of what we do, it's really more around this communication as a whole
Yep.
and the antiquated ticket experience and the impacts that has. And it's pretty interesting. And Mark is our CEO is pretty compelling. So he helped me see the vision and get on board a little over a year ago. And man, it's been awesome.
That's awesome. And I imagine that you, leading sales at Line Guard, felt the pain points because you work directly with the customer. Whenever they have support issues, I'm sure they go to you as well, and you feel that. Um, yeah. So yeah, I guess everybody on the team seems to have a lot of empathy for the for the MSPs. So I looked at your profile, and you have a very interesting career path. You've co-founded several companies. You're a campus minister. Um, I guess, yeah. Could you tell us a little bit more about your journey here?
Sure. Yeah, I think everyone's like that's in some type of startup is like I've been selling stuff my whole life. I've always been like I had lemonade stands, I had t-shirts or whatever. So I had a t-shirt brand in high school, and it was a lot of fun, and we like sponsored skateboarders, and that was how I
Oh
was,
wow.
all of a sudden everyone's like, "Oh, you're an entrepreneur," and you're 16 or whatever, and it's like I don't even know what that word means. So, but that really, I think like you can be shaped so easily at that age.
Hmm.
Like I studied entrepreneurship for my undergrad, went to
Cool.
University of Houston, got to commercialize some intellectual property that was
Wow.
around recycling rare earth elements. Way over my head. I'm not that smart. Like there were some PhDs involved in it. But as a student there in the entrepreneurship program, I got to help commercialize that product and do a bunch of business plan competitions and get exposed to a lot of stuff. And once I did that, like we, won a couple $1 million in business plan, like award money. And from there, you mentioned the minister stuff. Like my faith's a big deal to me. And,
Hmm.
that's very entrepreneurial as well. Like starting a church or ministry or whatever those things are, is still building stuff from the ground up.
Wait,
And
you started that? You started the church?
no, 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 no,
Oh,
not
okay.
at all. Just any of that stuff, like
Hmm.
entrepreneurship is such a vague
Yeah,
term,
it's
and it should
everywhere.
be. And,
Yeah.
like I think someone who would found a church would be an entrepreneur the same way. And so, yeah, I got to do ministry on a bunch of college campuses and start some movements and those types of things. And that was super, super fun. But I was ready to get back into the business world pretty quickly. And that actually led me to my first exposure to MSPs. I joined a company reselling refurbished HP hardware. I'm in Houston, so HP and Compaq. There's a lot going on. And my first day on the job, I got an AIM Messenger account, which that was a while ago, but it was still way too late to be using AIM. And it
Hmm.
was super strange. But apparently, IT brokers are all on AIM, and it was just part numbers. I didn't even know what I was
Wow.
selling, but we'd get some product. We'd message people on AIM. We'd make some offers and sell it. And that's where I actually really learned what MSPs and VARs and all this
Mm.
stuff was before I met the Lion Guard team. So, I love Houston. Like the next gen conferences in Houston next week, there's a bunch of MSP people coming to Houston. It's not the most exciting city on paper, but there is a
What are you
big
talking about?
entrepreneurial. It's a great place to live, but it's not a
Yeah.
great place to visit. You don't want to come to Houston and go on a hike
You
or
have the
whatever.
best
But
pecan
it's
pies and barbecue.
thank you.
And
I
NASA
agree.
is cool, very cool.
That's true. Again, I love Houston. I appreciate the plug, but yeah, I'll have to say, like, I just feel really lucky that I got exposed to MSPs and small entrepreneurs, and um, so a bit long-winded, but I
I
love the space.
I noticed that you mentioned in high school you started off basically selling T-shirts and branded T-shirts and partnering with skateboarders and sponsoring, and you co-founded Recycle and got an award from the Department of Energy National Clean Energy Business Plan competition. Your work with the church and working with sales at the accelerator, at the startup accelerator, Station Houston, Line Guard, and Thread. Was sales or working in that area, talking to customers and enabling business owners to grow their customer base and sales? I guess was that always your plan? And I guess what attracts you about sales that you know you've stayed in it throughout your career. What about it is meaningful for you?
Yeah, I love the researched insight. That's some great that's a great question. Yeah, I don't think many people grow up wanting to be in sales, right? Like it doesn't have the great. There are now John Barrows has written a children's book about sales, which
Yeah,
go on Amazon.
Steve
I love,
Jobs. You know,
yeah,
yeah,
I love the idea of wanting to be in sales, but
yeah.
frankly, most people aren't, right? Um, I think when you can get excited about sales, and what I've seen is when you realize if you have a great product, mention Steve Jobs, if you have a great product that's empowering and changing people's lives, then you're really just helping people. And a lot of times you're helping people realize or unlock something that they didn't realize they needed. They maybe had been searching for, but they didn't quite know what to call it. That's where I think when you have an innovative product, helping people understand,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, we see a 30% decrease in response time when you're using chat. Most MSPs probably aren't sitting around thinking, like, I should use chat because there's a quicker response time. Like, maybe it feels right, like things are moving that way. But a lot of times people are saying, I'm afraid to turn on chat because I'm going to get overwhelmed by
Yep,
the
yep, yep,
amount of tickets I get.
yep. 100%.
And so when I'm selling Thread, I'm helping people learn like it doesn't have to be that way. Like you
Mm-hmm.
can be empowered to do it a different way. And this is actually what you see in reality. So yeah, like I'm in sales and I've done sales for a while now, but it's not as much around like I'll give you 30% off if you sign up tomorrow, and let's work these discounts and whatever. It's more about like this is going to make a huge impact on your
Yes.
business and ultimately be better for you, your customer, your employees. There's not a lot of roles where you get to do that. There's a lot of roles where you're helping build a product,
Hmm.
but getting people to use it is hard.
I love that approach, approaching sales with researching, understanding, empathizing with the customer, and then you know something that they don't. And we're aligning and we're trying to get to a common goal together. You're enabling, you're educating, you're paving the path for the business to reach their goal, their objective, faster response time, happier customers, saving time on the support team. So yeah, I think that's yeah. I love the way you put it. This is just the last question for fun here. You mentioned Houston a couple of times. Um, so my question was gonna be, so you stayed in Houston, throughout your career. What do you love about Houston? But I also know that you described Houston in a bit of a self-deprecating way as well. So I'm curious, where does that come from? I personally
Yeah,
love Houston. I've been there.
yeah, I love Houston. I mean, it's super diverse. The food's incredible.
Yeah,
There's not a ton of outdoor things to do. That's always the like downside of
I see.
Houston. You can go to the beach or fish or go
Yeah, yeah,
kayaking maybe, but
yeah. The Gulf
um,
Coast.
yeah, it's awesome. The third coast, some call it. But I think, frankly, when you have cities that don't have those types of things, you then have people that are here for other reasons. Like people in
Mm.
Houston are here for opportunity. They're here because of people. They're here because of the culture.
Yep.
And you get people that, realize like, hey, this isn't Denver. Like everyone's not just moving here to go snowboard on the weekends and like do their own thing. Like people
Yeah.
are here to be around other people and to
Mm.
collaborate. And, the software community in Houston isn't huge, but it's really rich. Like the community is so excited to collaborate. Um, we work in the Ion Houston, which is like the startup hub, and Lion Guard is also in that building. Microsoft's in that building. There's a couple hundred other startups in that building, and just having this small community in a big city, I love it, and I think there's a huge advantage because I can reach someone who's exited $1 billion company and go have lunch with them, and they'll
Wow.
give me the time of day because there's not as many software entrepreneurs in town that are looking for their help.
Yeah. You're in the same community. You already are have an in, right? You already have a connection. I love that culture of, hey, like we look out for each other in the community, right? Open door. We're gonna talk to folks. Foster the small community in Houston. Um, Bobby, that's all my questions. And last question is, what's the who should reach out to you, and what's the best way to reach you?
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, if you're an MSP that wants to provide magical experiences for your customers and you're thinking about how to do things more efficiently, let us know. You can go to our site, getthread.com. You can click book a demo there. You can find me on LinkedIn. I have a pirate hat on, Bobby Jacobs, and message me on that side. Jeremy, I had to hold back so much from asking you about yourself and Televy, and I know it's your podcast, so like everybody probably knows you, but this felt incredibly selfish, and I appreciate you letting me do that.
No, no. I mean, yeah. We're here to learn about you. Was there any burning question that you wanted to ask us here?
Yeah, getting to be in the pitch it competition with Televy, I think you guys are doing such incredible stuff. I know you guys were in Y Combinator, like the
Hmm.
level of talent that you guys have at your company is awesome. Um,
I love our team.
when you guys think about like the future of AI, and I know you have some other projects going on, like how does that fit in with Televy and supporting MSPs?
So we talked a little bit about this on one of our podcasts with Stephen Halt, COO of Halt Data Solutions. He also works in the military while running this MSPs in Germany right now. Um, us and them, we're working on basically this is one small application. I feel like AI is going to be prevalent in everything we do, just like how the internet, just like how fire, like is everywhere. But one thing that we are working on is basically MSPs get the risk assessment and then they go, what do I do, right? How do I solve this problem? And a lot of times there's a lot of patterns. There's a lot of repeated um, issues, right? That companies have, that companies share, and we oftentimes apply the same fix to every manually. Say,
Hmm.
hey, run this command, run this PowerShell script, run this terminal command, and so similar. So basically, one way of applying AI that we've been working on is basically you get the risk assessment and here's the recommendation of the fix. Now that's only so me personally and also our team feels this way when running a startup, when we're working with customers, when we're selling a product. We're not we're it's not about the technology, right? AI is a great
Sure.
tool to help us achieve and solve the problems that we want to solve. So it's only a small part. There's actually a huge part where we're opening up a partner vendor marketplace. So basically, when MSPs ask, "How do I solve this?" Well, okay, here's the partner. We're going to refer you to this person.
That's
This
awesome.
person's helped solve this problem for several other MSPs that we work with, right? So yeah, and maybe we could plug that into the AI to automatically refer to. So
Sure, sure.
it's all intertwined. Um, in terms of the vision, we'll have to get Naren, our founder, to talk about that. But yeah, did that help
No, it
answer your
makes
question, or
sense.
what are
Yeah.
your sort of thoughts on that? What's
No,
for
that's
you? What's your vision?
Yeah, I mean, that makes a ton of sense. You guys identify what's going on, and whether you're solving it with your own solution or you're passing that to a Roost or someone else who's kicking off those automations, like that makes all the sense in the world. For us, we help other tools and MSPs connect to that end user. So
Mm-hmm.
approvals are one of the main things that stops automation today. You
Mm.
know what to do, you've identified it, but before you identify it, you need someone to approve it.
Mm-hmm.
We can get that approval right down to the end user
Yep.
to unlock that automation. So I think that's a huge piece for us integrating with other tools or even just through the ticket backdoor integrations can
Yeah.
be super powerful. I mentioned our stuff coming up, service, what we call service GPT at IT Nation, where we're
Yeah.
suggesting responses in line in the chat. Like that, that's pretty exciting on our
You're going
side.
to IT Nation too?
Absolutely.
Okay,
We'll
we
be
should do
there.
something. I'll talk to you offline. But
Yeah.
yeah, I guess my personal, and this doesn't reflect the whole team, but it's just me personally. I see Telivy as a critical sales tool. Um,
Yeah.
the way I think about products is, and we're talking about product market fit, right? And who are our customers? Okay, let's interview our customers. Let's ask them what their biggest pain point is. What's their top one, two, three, four, five? What's their objectives for the next 3 to 6 to 12 months? What's top of mind for them? What are they most worried about? What keeps them up at night? And we gather all this data. We understand what our customers care about. Personally, I feel we should be addressing their number one pain point.
Sure.
And so basically, my personal opinion on the vision is uh, a lot of MSPs, they're technical people. They might know how to make the fix, right, and fix the tech, but everything else you mentioned, operations, support, sales, marketing, that's it's a muscle. You have to train that muscle over years, and that could be painful, right? Training
Yeah.
any muscle. Our you know the way I approach this is we help you basically start that conversation with your end client. Um, MSPs have trouble, getting people to care about cybersecurity, right? Care about their
Yeah.
services. What gets them to care? Well, here's a list of your risks,
Yep.
and here's the
Yep.
cost you're going to incur. Let's have a very frank conversation. The way you're going about it now, here's what you're paying, and here's the
Yep.
risk, and here's not when, but not if, but when it happens, and here's how much you would pay for the monthly service.
Yep.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah, and you
helping
guys are
enable them
also
feels great.
making that a modern experience. Like there's some
Yeah,
other tools out there that do that in a, and they'll spit out 500 pages that you then have to figure out what to do
absolutely.
with. And um,
My favorite thing about what the team was doing recently is we have a risk assessments widget for MSPs to put on their homepage.
that's
So if you're
awesome.
talking about prospecting, if you're talking about marketing, if you're talking about inbound, generating an inbound leads list, well, the people who visited your website, whether they came from social media, whether they met you at an event or had a coffee, they come to your website, they go, oh, yeah, I'll have a free risk assessment. They fill in their name, their email, their company, and now you have that list of sales leads, right? Of people who came to your
Yep.
website interested in you, and now you have an actionable list of risks and vulnerabilities to solve, right? You have an action plan you can present to them. Um,
Yep.
the conversation's already started. That's one of the hardest parts. So, yeah, that's a little bit about us.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. That's awesome, man.
So, and I asked you who should reach out to you and what's the best way to reach you, right? Yeah. So links will be in the description. And the last plug for us, hey, MSP owners, if you want to win new clients or help your clients be compliant, or if you're interested in capturing clients, new prospects on your website with a risk assessments widget, um, reach out to us at televy.com. And special promotion for podcast listeners. If you like Televy, let us know you came from the podcast. We'll give you a discount. Also, a $500 referral bonus if you know somebody who could benefit from winning new clients, capturing new prospects. All right, and so thank you so much, Bobby, for speaking with us today for uh, the amazing demo. I love the product, for showing us how you can help the MSPs in our community. And I am very excited to start making connections and sharing a little bit about your personal journey. Very, very fascinating and very relatable as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Jeremy. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see y'all next time. Thank you all.